in the garden in spring and Holy Week. That's a powerful combination. All the promise of new life, the vibrant colour of the flowers, and the sound of birdsong, mixed with the way of the cross, the way of self-sacrifice and death. There are several different types of garden in the Bible. There's vegetable gardens, king's gardens, palace gardens, and a garden of love, which you can read about in the Song of Solomon in chapter 6. But there are three main gardens. The first, of course, is God's garden, the Garden of Eden, where God enjoyed the company of Adam and Eve as they walked together in the cool of the day. Tragically, that wonderful relationship was broken through the willful disobedience of God's command, although of course God's love for his people never faltered. God had a plan to put things right, which brings us to the second garden. On the Thursday evening of Holy Week, after sharing their final meal together, Jesus and his friends went to the Garden of Gethsemane, where Jesus prayed. Given the choice, I'm sure that most of us would choose a different route to the new life of Easter, one that bypasses the cross of Good Friday. But as Jesus prayed and his friends slept, it became clear that there was no other way. There in the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus committed himself to God's will. And after Good Friday and the horror of the cross, we arrive at Holy Saturday and the silence of the garden tomb. The women had waited in obedience to God's command to rest on the Sabbath. But at dawn on Sunday morning, they entered the garden. The stone had been rolled away and the tomb was empty. There were men in dazzling clothes, and the women, well, they were terrified. And then there he was, Jesus himself. He was alive, and there in the garden they fell down and they worshipped him. From the despair of the Garden of Eden, via the Garden of Gethsemane, to the joy and promise of new life, eternal life, just outside that tomb in that garden. Jesus was alive, and humanity's relationship with God could be renewed and restored. And as we gradually move out of lockdown and are allowed to meet with our families and friends in our gardens, if we're fortunate enough to have them, I wonder, how might we use our spring gardens for the good of others? Hopefully the sun will shine and many relationships will be renewed and restored in the garden.